Arutperumjothi Arutperumjothi Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi. So I welcome you all for this session, and Swamy Ramalinga, our Perumal, has given an ocean of knowledge in Suttha Sanmargam. And now for the past weeks we are seeing about the food system, which is very much essential to know in this pandemic period, because our proper food can save our life also. So in that manner, it is good to see this, to know about these sessions. So I welcome you all for these sessions. Let's all pray the divine for a good and prosperous 2021. I'll chant the mantra. You all please join me by chanting the mantra inside your mind. Arutperumjothi Arutperumjothi Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 ஒருமையுடன் நினது திருமலரடி நினைக்கின்ற உத்தமதம் உறவு வேண்டும். உள்ளொன்று வைத்து புறமொன்று பேசுவார் உறவு களவாமை வேண்டும். பெருமை பெரு நினது புகழ் பேச வேண்டும். பொய்மை பேசாதிருக்க வேண்டும். பெருநெறி பிடித்தொழுக வேண்டும். மதமான பேய் பிடியாதிருக்க வேண்டும். மறுவு பெண்ணாசையை மறக்கவே வேண்டும். உனை மறவாதிருக்க வேண்டும். உனை மறவாதிருக்க வேண்டும். மதி வேண்டும். நின் கருணை நிதி வேண்டும். நோயற்ற வாழ்வில் நான் வாழ வேண்டும். தர்மமிகு சென்னையில் கந்த கோட்டத்துள் வளர்த்தலமோங்கு கண்டவேளே தன்முகத்துய்யமணி உன்முக செய்வமணி சண்முக தெய்வமணியே. அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி 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 தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி. எல்லா உயிர்களும் இன்புற்று வாழ்க. திருவருட்பிரகாச வள்ளல் பெருமானார் தெய்வ திருவடிகளே சரணம் சரணம்.
Happy New Year to everyone. For the last 2 weeks, Balaji Ayya have taken us into a path and journey of how important food is when we eat it every day, or even drink for that matter. Drink water, what kind of water, how you should drink it, and the various importance of vegetables. And last week he touched on fruits. So we are going on a journey of mainly a vegetarian diet, which is very important at a climate change world presently. And I believe Balaji Ayya will take us into an in-depth study into a third session, which is today. And without much ado, I would like to pass today's session to Balaji Ayya.
அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி எல்லாம் செயல் கூடும் என்னானை அம்பலத்தே எல்லாம் வல்லான் தனியே இன்று வருமோ நாளைக்கே வருமோ மற்ற என்று வருமோ அறியேன் என் கோவே துன்று மல வெம்மாயற்று வெளிக்குள் வெளிகடந்து சும்மாயிருக்கும் சுகம். It takes a village to raise a child. As the saying goes, want to thank everyone in the IT support, Gauri Amma and their and Nagaraj, Swamy, and other sadhus who are helping me navigate through the path of Suttha Sanmargam, and all other souls who are encouraging me to talk in here. So, like Gandhi summed it up yesterday, we started last session, we started looking in about the food system and how important pure Sattvic diet is. But not sure if how much of you were overwhelmed with the amount of information which has been provided, as that could change based on every individual. So going up with a list like I'm going to change the water, have to boil it, reduce it, going to make sure that my dry ginger is treated in such a manner, have to make sure that the salt has been treated in such a manner, the tamarind should be in such a manner, or peppercorns, all those treatments, coming up with a list. And say, for instance, I come up with all those lists and take back to my mom and say, I give all those information to her. She might, just look at it and say like, right? Like, well, if you are married and lucky, your wife might say that too, right? You might hear from her too. So, but jokes aside, the main point is sometimes things have to be gradual. Things has to be gradual, but one good step always leads to the next one. But the first step is very important, right? So at home, taking care of home is not an easy job. Moms, wives, sisters, brothers, or grandpas, or grandmas. It's a full-time job. For us, it's an 8-hour or a 9-hour work, and we don't have to think about it. But home is not the same. It's taking care of kids and maintaining a home is a 24-hour job, and we have to be really considerate of it and help them and include them with us in this journey to make this a successful one. I just want to bring that up. And I remember last time during the question and answer session, multiple people had questions about how to extract fat from coconut, right? So what we had done is we had created some slides, so that explains it a little bit better, and it has some more clarity on it. So let me go ahead and share my slides. So the first idea is just to get the coconut milk, and this one everyone should be familiar about. And you can either grind or you can blend it, or you can use a mixie, depending on where you are in the world. You might have to use multiple methods to get the milk out of it. So that's what we are doing. So first you get coconut milk from the coconut, and then what we are going to do is we are going to set aside the coconut milk, coconut milk what we have extracted. We are not going to boil the milk. we are just going to set aside the coconut milk for if it's a cool place, or if you have to refrigerate it, you may have to do it for like 5 to 8 hours, and you would start seeing the solid or the fat actually getting separated from the rest of it. So that's what's shown in the picture in here. So you would slowly start seeing those separations happening. So this is how it looks. And then what you can do is we can slowly isolate the fat from the rest of it, the contents, and it will form a liquid like this. Eventually, it's going to look like this. The first time it came to a surprise, it looks a little bit thicker consistency than how a tender coconut looked. But that's the only method, you know, which I know, or which I can find. But if there is any other method which anyone knows, you know, feel free to share by, and it's good. That's what satsang is about, right? Satsang is we are discussing about the truth, the ultimate truth in us, and the Sangam is a group of people. So Sat plus Sangam. So this is how we can extract fat from the coconut, and finally it will be like this. The taste of it is a little bit even closer to the tender coconut water, the elanir. That's how it the taste is. I think that's the best way I can put it. But feel free to give it a shot if you have to. So in vegetables, so the first one we have here is raw banana. So in fruits, you remember we were talking about the ripened banana, the Payan, Rastali, Bangala, all those types of bananas which Perumal has suggested. But here we are starting with raw banana. So before going to raw banana, let's think about this for a while. You might have heard of probiotics. And it's gaining really a popularity recently. It's been sold as capsules, being sold in the form of flavored probiotic mixes, in the form of yogurt, Yopalt, and all the other stuff, strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, blueberry, you name it. There is all kind of flavors in that. And probiotic is nothing but our curd, what we use on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about what's called as prebiotics. Prebiotic is the good bacteria which feeds to the probiotics. So the probiotics actually generates good bacteria in our gut. And for it to survive and for it to function properly, what's called is prebiotics, and it's a dietary fiber. And what it has is something called as resistant starch. Not when banana is eaten ripe, it has the ordinary starch. It doesn't have this kind of resistant starch, as some might already think like, oh, I'm eating a fruit, ripened banana, so is it going to have these prebiotics? No, it's not going to, because when the fruit ripens, it has the ordinary starch and it doesn't have the resistant starch. So this resistant starch, actually, the digestion of it happens in the large intestine or perungudal, right? So you have a Sirungodal, which is the small intestine, and also a large intestine. Have a snapshot of it so we can go in a little bit detail on those. So this resistant starch gets digested in the large intestine, and it helps our gut, and it helps our digestion system as a whole. In Kerala, even till now, what's called as kunnambaram, the banana variety is called as kunnam. It's a small banana, and what they do is for babies, during the transition process from the milk to the solid, they use a semi-solid food, cool, what we call it as in Tamil, right? So for that, the process is they use this kunnambaram. It's actually they use the kunnam kai, which is similar to the raw banana we are talking about. They dry it, they sun dry it, powder it, boil it in water, mix it, form it as a paste, and then give as a first semi-solid food to babies. So the reason why they are giving is the digestion process is easier there. So the babies can digest, or they can transition clearly, provides a good segue from the liquid food to the solid food. So that's the reason behind giving those kind of food even to the babies. And when talking about digestion, it's we have to get in a little bit details in there here. So digestion, constipation, everything are interrelated, right? And Perumal and even the scientific community agrees and says that lots of diseases are happening because of this constipation. So when there is constipation, or when urine is not passed appropriately, similarly, the excretion of waste doesn't happen, then that leads to diseases. So that is really important. And for that, we have to really discuss more about this digestion process and how and the food what we are looking in are definitely going to help us. But to go into detail and to have an understanding on those are also very important. So when we talk about digestion, we definitely want to talk about also the pure Sattvic food and also meat as well, right? So in Jnana Sabai, in Vallalar, if you have visited the temple of knowledge, it would be written in the board, right? Kolai pulai tavirtavar mattume ulle varavum. So insisting people to enter who have avoided killing and eating meat, right? So people who have avoided killing and meat eating. So on a deeper sense, Jnana Sabai, the temple, depicts how our head is. It's a model of our head. Perumal has that to indicate that without compassion, all of our meditation, whatever spiritual path we are trying to take, the meditation, the fasting, the prayers will end up in vain. It's not going to be of use. And that is what it's indicating there. It's not, it's, he is the most compassionate person. His goal is basically everybody to attain to the state of himself. So, truth being said, in Jivagarunya Ulukam, it is clearly pointed that powerful sages, yogis, intellectual beings, jnanis, won't be able to enter the immortal home if they do not possess the key of compassionate discipline. So this is the key, and that is really why it is mentioned up there. Otherwise, we cannot get in ourselves. We can't get into your head. It is impossible. So that is the reason why it's been put up there. But also, it's further extended into like in the form of question and answers. If we have gone through the Jivagarunya Olukam book, it's in the form of question and answer. And regarding meat, actually, it's been said it's as a hereditary habit, like our domesticated animals, like cat or dog. We can train them to be like a pure vegetarian, and they can eat vegetarian food and survive. And these habits are hereditary, and you can see this pretty clearly for animals living in forests like lions or tigers. It's also said that those animals even could be trained to be purely vegetarian. So that's also possible. But the difference between forest and here is there, the compassion, there is no compassion in there. It's not to the extent of what we have in here in our world. So that is the difference. It's also said that all living beings are part of the natural truth and have and are the manifestation of God's grace. So when every living being is part of a God's grace, how can one living being be even served, or in some temples being served in the form of food, or even being consumed in the form of food? So it doesn't add up there. Also, feeding a hungry soul by using some other life's meat is not compassion, is not under the compassionate discipline. It doesn't come under the umbrella of compassionate discipline, and is not agreed by God, and is also against nature, as said by Perumal. But this brings another interesting question, which I'm sure someone might already be thinking through, because we are saying here all living beings are part of this natural truth and are manifestation of God's grace. So how about plants and trees? It's an obvious question which comes in. So for plants and trees, they only have the touch senses, and these are the words in Jivagarunya Olukam, and nothing is of mine. I'm just being a translator in here. So they are all touch senses, and we have to actually do Sattvisaram. We have to think through this thing. They have only touch senses, and their mind is underdeveloped. So it's not considered as killing or not causing pain. So how do we equate to us? How do we feel it, right? How do we feel it? We can feel it if we cut our hair or remove our nail. That is exactly the similar feeling or the same feeling what they have, the plants and trees have. And also, we are able to grow the plants through cuttings or through seedlings too. seeds are inert as well. They do not have the life until it's been sown in the land and it's been watered. They do not grow by itself unless if it's in a place where it gets a little bit water or has some amount of water and has that humidity in it, right? There's no life energy on it just by itself. So consuming seeds, vegetables, leaves, stem are not against or not again Jivagarunyam. Those are the pure food. Those are the pure Sattvic food which we are talking about in here. And also, grace is God's compassion. And God is also in the form of grace. That's been shown in multiple places in Agaval. Grace is Arul. Arule nam mudi, Arule nam adi, Arule nam endra Sivame. So that the whole Arul is nothing but is in the form of the God. It's composed of God. The center, the top, the bottom, everything. But what is soul? Soul's natural existence is nothing but compassion. So if we try to help someone, right, either our friend or some family member, or we see someone suffering due to whatever reason it is, in the road or old grandma or a little kid, we are sympathetic towards them because, you know, we have a son and we don't want that kid to be in the same place or going through the same suffering, right? So that kind of compassion is what the true nature of soul is. That is life, soul's natural existence. So by showing compassion to other living things is how grace of God can be achieved. Can compassion help us in any of our goal? Was the question which got raised in my mind. What can it buy me? How can it help me? And when looking deep, by practicing compassion and experiencing the happiness, right, after helping the kid or the relative, you know, or your grandma or your parents, and seeing the happiness from them, we are delighted. We are in an ecstasy. That happiness lasts for longer than the other worldly things what we have got using an iPhone or an iPad. It doesn't last, those happiness. But these happiness which we get out of this compassion prolonged for a while, and when practiced, it leads to enlightenment, Jivan Mukti. I also said people in family can ignore the stages, yoga, and then just practice and follow compassionate discipline and even reach immortality. So that's a bold statement to put in, but it has a deeper meaning in it when thinking about it. I know it's just a topic on its own, but want to bring it up. And I do even have a slide to show like how much compassion can take us to. So this is from Agaval, right? Sittigal anaithum telivittu enake Sathiya nilai tannai dayavinil thandanai போற்றினின் பேரருள் போற்றினின் பெருஞ்சீர் ஆற்றலில் ஓங்கிய அருட்பெருஞ்சோதி. So this is Perumalar's own experience. So the Godhead has disclosed all the supernatural powers and set the true state through compassion. And in another verses, it's being said the millions of powers from yoga, karma, or jnana, all those powers come in. And not that. The next one, right? உலகுயிர் திரளலாம் ஒளிநெறி பெற்றிட இலகும் ஐந்தொழிலையும் யான் செய்ய தந்தனை. So granted me 5 divine jobs to excel other living beings, to raise them to the next state by creating them, by protecting them, by removing their impurities, by taking them to their next level, by giving them mukti, by giving them siddhis, revelatory, by making them understand, reveal it. And in another verse, அருள் பெரில் ஒரு துரும்பும் ஐந்தொழில் ஆற்றும். So even a dust, if it has a grace, can perform these 5 jobs. So is that what we can do? No. Now it extends more. மூவரும் தேவரும் முத்தரும் சித்தரும் யாவரும் பெற்றிடா இயல் என கலித்தரை. So now my potential transcends beyond the creator, savior, destroyer, enlightened souls and saints. This statement speaks for everything. This is the complete power of what we are talking about. Compassion, right? So, but also Suttha Sanmargam is combination of Sattvicharam and also compassion. Both are tied one on each other. If we take a look at spider web, you'd see the outer ring. Then there are all these subsequent rings, and it's all interconnected to each other. The center of the spider ring, I'm thinking it as compassion. That's how Suttha Sanmargam is. We can read Agaval, Thiruvarutpa, everything, and everything can be correlated to one another. And finally, the center point is nothing but compassion. So that is the experience, and that's what Suttha Sanmargam is. Okay. Now, actually, we were talking about the digestion process, and we were talking about meat. And with meat, you might have your own experiences and based on the age, the digestion might get bad, right? The digestion is not going to be good too. So if you have experiences, wanted to share another insights on what is happening, and let me go ahead and share my screen there too. And this is the 7th grade or 8th grade biology class. Sorry about that, but you're not going into details. You're not going into details, stuff like that. But just something visually, so to put everything into a perspective. So what we are seeing in the snapshot in here, this is the stomach. This is the stomach, right? Where you have, where you can see my arrow, where the food gets digested. And it gets passed on to the small intestines. These coiled one. Those are what's called as sirukudal, yeah. So small intestines. These are coiled in such a manner, and then we'll see a little bit more about it. And it gets connected to the large intestine, which is the Perumgudal, right? And then there's a rectum too. So the food gets digested, and when we saw about the raw banana, we said the resistant starch gets digested it has dietary fiber which helps us digest in the large intestine, and the large intestine is this one. This outer area is our large intestine, right? So now there is something good to think about in here. Do we know what's the length of this small intestine? Approximately, human small intestine is 10 feet in length, approximately, and large intestine is 5 feet in length. So without including the stomach, it's just, we're talking about the intestines in here, we're talking about 15 feet, 15 adi. So 15 feet of intestine is what we have, and the food has to pass in to the stomach, has to get digested, and the waste gets excreted and has to go through the large intestine and finally through the rectum, right? So it's not an easy process thinking about it. And this is a food for thought. How much do you think would be the length of the intestine length of a cow? Approximately, right? It's 100 feet. We are talking about multi-story buildings in here. 100 feet. But let's again cross-examine that back to lion. It's 3 to 7 feet. So on average, we are talking about 5-6 feet in there, and 15 feet for human, and then 100 feet for herbivore cow. So digestion is a tough process. Lots of things happen inside. So in the first session, we saw about how the general to-dos of the food, how we have to eat food, not too much, not too little, but in a balanced way, chewing it thoroughly, and then not eating when you are not hungry, and not get driven towards the sensual pleasures. So we saw all those stuff. So those things, even the water, the hot water treatment, everything helps us. Everything helps us during this process of digestion in here. So digestion is very important, and we have to be really very conscious through it. Perumal is so compassionate that for in sensual pleasures, right? For indriya volukam, for the senses, there are 21 disciplines. And there are 2 dedicated, just along the lines that falls in synchronization in the lines of what we are talking about. And let's try to look into it. It's very useful. Malajala ubadigalai akramam adikramam mindri kiramatil nirkachaidal. So when passing urine or excreting the waste, during the excretion of waste process, it has to be done in an appropriate manner. What is an appropriate manner? Reading newspapers, right? Depends, everybody has their own habit. Maybe these days it's just going through the WhatsApp message or watching YouTube or trying to do something. So this is one job which has to be done in an appropriate manner, meaning like we have to just focus on what the job is about. And also when that feeling happens or when it triggers that feeling, that had to be addressed in there. Oh, this happens a lot. This happens a lot even in offices these days. I'm even guilty of it. Like we try to control a urine when we are busy or when we are serious about some work, and keep like, oh, let's wrap that up before going. So those are not appropriate. So those are not appropriate. That's what we are talking about in here, being appropriate, trying to address it when the nature calls, trying to address it, trying to listen to it, trying to take care of it at the right time is more important in here. And the second discipline is even more in depth into it. Perumal, through his compassion, goes in and says, but there are times. So, kala bedangalalum ushna abhasatalum. So, there are times due to weather or due to body heat, right? Too much heat in the body, or because of the food, right? Sometimes the excretion of waste doesn't happen. It gets tougher. For a day, it's okay, but sometimes, depending on the food, or it could continue further. So there's a prescription or list of what can be done, which can help us, which can help for the excretion of the waste, so we can be disease free. And some of this process we might have known, and some of it might be new to you. So during those times, right? So kala bedathalum ushna abhasatinalum tadai nernal. So if there is an issue due to weather or due to heat in the body, aushadhi is herbs. So herbals can help us. We all know kadukai. People can also take what your Siddha doctor is also specifying. Other herbals are there too. That's also fine. Everything is fine. Kaduka is a good one which everybody uses. But one thing to note there is we have to make sure that it is unseeded. sometimes when buying kadka or hartikai in Hindi powder, they grind all the seeds and the top layer of it, including the skin, together. And it's said that the seeds are the poison or the visham for kadka. So we have to make sure that the seeds are extracted and the rest are powdered. Tirupala. So that's another one which people use a lot. That's also good. But the main point with kadka, which we want to mention, is we have to consume unseeded kadka.